I've been in the market for a new screen for a while now, but every time I look at the cheap 27-inch options, I end up feeling that uneasy tug of buyer's remorse. Those budget monitors look great on paper, then you finally get them home and discover the colors are flat, the refresh rate can't keep up with fast shooters, and you're left squinting at the edges because the screen just isn't big enough to fill your peripheral vision. That's why, before I hit record, I spent a solid day digging through forums, watching a handful of long-form YouTube deep dives, and scrolling through the Q&A sections on Amazon. The consensus was clear: if you're willing to stretch a little further, a large, high refresh rate display can actually change how you experience games, movies, and even daily work tasks. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So, does the Samsung 55-inch Odyssey Arc feel like a smarter buy? Or is it just another pricey screen that looks impressive on spec sheets? Let's break it down the way most of us actually decide, by looking at how it fits into a real living room or home office, what kind of usage patterns make it shine, and where the hidden trade-offs lie. First off, the most obvious thing about the Odyssey Arc is its sheer size. A 55-inch panel with a 1000 curvature means the screen wraps around your field of view in a way you're used to seeing on high-end televisions, not on a desk monitor. If you've ever tried to set up a dual-monitor workstation and found yourself constantly turning your head to glance at the secondary screen, you'll immediately notice the difference. With the Arc, you can keep your primary workspace, whether that's a spreadsheet, a video editing timeline, or an MMO chat window, right in front of you, while the curvature keeps peripheral content comfortably in view without the stretch you get on a flat panel. In practice, I set it up in a dedicated gaming corner, angled the back of the TV about a foot from the wall, and the immersive feel was immediate. Battles in Starfield felt less like you were looking through a window and more like you were actually inside the cockpit. That sense of immersion is something the Arc markets heavily with its cockpit mode. The idea is simple: the screen automatically adjusts its aspect ratio and zooms in on the central portion of a game, essentially turning a widescreen title into a 4K virtual reality experience. In my testing, fast-paced shooters like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2 benefited from this, because the UI elements around the edges shrink out of the way, letting you focus on the action without losing HUD information. The Eclipse lighting adds a subtle ambient glow that syncs with on-screen colors, which is less about functionality and more about mood setting. It's the sort of visual flourish that makes a gaming session feel like a small event rather than a chore. Now onto the specs that actually matter when you use the monitor day to day. The 4K resolution combined with a 165Hz refresh rate is a rare find at this size. Most 55-inch displays sit at 60 Hz, which is fine for movies, but can leave gamers feeling a little jittery. The Arc's high refresh rate translates into a smoother experience, especially when you pair it with a capable graphics card. In a practical sense, this means you'll see less motion blur in fast action scenes, and the frame pacing feels more consistent. My own setup, a RTX 4090, could push 1440p titles well beyond 200 frames per second, and the Arc kept up without dropping frames, which is exactly what you want when you're chasing that competitive edge. One of the features that isn't talked about enough is the built-in sound dome technology. Rather than relying on a separate sound system, the Arc uses a series of upward-facing speakers that bounce sound off the ceiling, creating a sense of height and directionality. In a typical living room with a modest ceiling height, the effect was subtle but noticeable. Footsteps in a horror game seemed to come from above, and explosions felt a bit more three-dimensional. It's not a replacement for a dedicated surround sound system, but as a built-in solution it saves you from having to clutter the room with extra speakers. If you're a creator who does a lot of video editing or graphic design, the multi-view mode can be handy. It splits the screen into several independent windows, letting you preview multiple timelines or reference images without having to toggle between tabs. I tested it by opening two 4K video streams side by side. The monitor handled the split without any noticeable lag, and the colors stayed true to the source material. For people who juggle several tasks, think a streamer monitoring chat, game footage, and a webcam feed simultaneously. This is a real productivity boost. That said, the Arc isn't without its practical downsides. The most glaring is the price tag. At well over $2,000, it's a sizable investment, and not everyone has the budget to justify a 55-inch gaming monitor, when a 27-inch 144Hz panel can already deliver a solid experience for most titles.